that's on.
What's on?
The battery.
How do you
The
do
little
it?
button.
You look at the bottom, and you push this. And
Little button.
to
Yeah.
push on.
Right.
Push on.
Yeah.
And then you touch one to make sure the needle moves.
Right. Now, if I would place this on Jen's neck, and that needle doesn't move, trust me, the battery ain't on. But when I place it on her neck, what am I supposed to do?
Wait for the needle.
Wait for it to get happy. All right? So, VP, watch the needle get happy. Getting happy doesn't mean it's going to stop at 0. It's going to stop. So once it stops, I hit what?
The little
9 o'clock button.
9 o'clock.
Once I hit the 9 o'clock button,
You let it go.
I, 1, start my glide. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Occipital ridge, dig in, roll under, shut down, take off.
You press 9 again.
To stop it.
Stop it.
The
Before-
But I
nine
don't
does
press
this.
that
Before it comes
9,
off.
Michelle, until I'm done scanning.
Right.
And that does this. The
Yes.
9 starts the graphing paper.
9 starts the graphing paper and stops it.
Yeah, starts and stops the graphing paper.
Okay, now, we haven't had any more conversation. He asked me to do a nervoscope cervical scan, and that's it. Now we start talking. And I say, or he says, what type of analysis are you trying to establish with this scan? Pattern. Where'd you start? VP. Where'd you end? Occiput. How many seconds?
14 to 8.
14, 18 seconds. If you say 7 or 9 beeps, I go, that's good. But, how many seconds? Then I'm going to say, what was your analograph setting? High speed time marker. If he goes, switches up, I'll go, that's good, but what's that mean? Go back there and look.
Yeah.
You have the prop. Use your prop. And it says on the back, high speed time marker. Then I'm going to say, Michelle,
Yes.
what's the protocol to establish your analysis?
3 scans, 20 minutes apart, 24 to 48 hours.
Okay, and then I'm going to do this. And I'm going to look at your graph. And here's what I'm looking for. Squiggly line, which means the battery was on, and hash marks. 79. If they're satisfactory, no deductions. If there's something missing, I'll hand it to you and say, what's wrong with this graph? If you know what's wrong with it, you'll lose less points than if you go, I don't know. Okay? That's the only things I'm looking for.
So if there's like 10 markers.
And you
on
say,
there-
oh, I have 1 too many beeps. Good. You knew what the mistake was.
But then you'll still get points taken off though.
Yes,
for
you
that.
will, but you won't get as many.
And if there's not a squiggly line, the battery wasn't on.
There's a lot of halvesies with this test. Okay? All right, that's assessment number 2. Everybody okay with that one? Now, the last one is the verbalization only.
Take it off.
So I will say, let's talk.
Wait, I have a question. When did hit the 2 o'clock button?
Don't hit it for this. We're not there yet. I'm getting
That's
there.
Oh, that's
for the
first.
verbalized
This is
one.
the third one,
This is the
which
full
is the
stop.
verbal.
So it's 9 o'clock, take down, and take it again.
And then take
Yes.
it off.
9, hit it before you take it off.
Yeah. Like it goes down and then,
Okay, you ready? Third assessment. I will say, let's talk about the nervoscope full spine scan. And I'll let you get your bearings. And then I'll say, what type of analysis you trying to establish with that scan? Right. Where are you going to start that scan? Sacrum. Where are you going to end it? You know that's not true.
VP.
VP. But see how easy these answers roll off your tongue? And you know, when I'm sitting there, I don't flinch. I give you that false sense of security. And then sometimes you go, I didn't say that, did I? I go, yes, you did. So VP is where you start. Sacrum is where you end.
So you do
Now,
opposite of Titron.
yes, Titron, sacrum up.
but now it's safer.
Now it's VP down. Then I'm going to say to you, what exactly are you looking for on this nervoscope when you perform the scan? You're not performing it, you're telling me how you're performing it. So what are you looking for?
Temperature differential.
Temperature differential, deflection of needle, something to do with temperature. Then once you tell me that, I will say, if you see a significant deflection of the needle, what are you going to do?
You're gonna mark.
What's the push 2 o'clock button, what's it do?
Marks the paper.
Marks the paper, what else?
And then you're supposed to mark the patient on the side.
Perfect, on the side deflection. So the 2 things you must tell me are, I'm going to hit the 2 o'clock button to mark the paper,
So when you hear, wait, when you see it deflect, you're gonna.
2 o'clock button and mark the side deflection on the patient's back. That's why I said when I demonstrated this, and you guys argued that I didn't do this, I talked about the multitask. And I said, ladies, you'll be better. You heard that part, but you didn't hear any other stuff. Okay? Now, after you tell me the side deflects to your marking and the 2 o'clock button, I'm going to say to you, does marking the patient's back on the side of deflection and hitting the 2 o'clock button confirm your analysis?
No.
What does?
Swipes.
2 swipes. Then I'm going to say to you, what's a swipe?
Swipe is
You're
here.
gonna go to your mark and go.
One segment below and one segment above.
But go above the below, not below the above.
So could you say it again?
Okay, swipe is when you go a segment above the mark to a segment below the mark 2 times. Do you know why?
It doesn't happen.
Cause you wanna check to see where you marked really was.
That's a very general, rhetorical, implied answer.
Yeah.
But do you know what mechanism forces you to do that? Never mind. Here's the deal. It's not important for you to know that. First of all, it's Gonstead. And when I go a segment above to a segment below, what am I covering?
Oh, you're covering the two, because it always
Ooh, what's that
involves
term?
intersegmental.
Nicely said, intersegmental. Now, why do I do it 2 times? To check to see if I'm correct, sure. That would be an obvious answer. But here's why. Remember the first thing that happened when I put this on Jen's neck?
Yep.
What happened? I had to wait for equilibration. Well, what makes you think that every time I move it, I have to wait for equilibration? So if I see a deflection, I mark it. But I want to make sure it's not an equilibration issue. So I go back and do 1, 2, and if it doesn't, it wasn't equilibrating, it was actually significant.
So you're basically checking temperature twice,
3 times.
3 times?
So now how would you ask
Because
that
it's
question?
conductive heat.
Right.
No, I'm not asking any of that.
How would you see
So
it
you just
though?
ask what a swipe is, and we say.
Let's ask what a swipe is, and you tell me what a swipe is. How would I see
How
what?
would you see it on here? Like, no, we go with what?
Well, what would happen is, when I marked her back, I would hit the 2 o'clock button, and I would get a mark in the paper. See that, when I mark the paper, those hash marks are showing up on the paper, but only when I make it.
Now, how come we don't do that for the cervical?
You ain't do that.
Good question. The reason you don't do it for the cervicals in my class is so I can condition you to having all full spines, breaks, and having all cervical pattern. Because you're right, if I threw that cervical in there, that's not pattern.
Right.
But in the real world, I would do the same thing here up. And measure it the same way, marking the neck and marking the back.
And now, for the full spine nervous scope, do we also press the 9 o'clock button to start the
You
scan?
would, but you don't have to do that because you're going to demonstrate it, but yes, you
Right,
would.
Okay.
Any questions? That's the 3 assessments. That's exactly how I'm going to test you. Now, all you have to do is get comfortable with your demonstration. And here's my suggestion. Some of you have already practiced all this.